Hi, it's Lynn here, and I'm here with week 4 of Sarah Hatton's A Day Out blanket. I'm going to show you today how to work a cable stitch and also how to pick up stitches, because this square is made in 2 parts. So first of all, you knit the central square, which you can see here on this colourway. It's in cream, and then after you've finished all of that, you pick up stitches along each of the 4 edges, and then you decrease to create these little triangular corners. And then if you just rotate your square around like that, it becomes a nice square with the centre slightly offset, which is really nice. So I'm going to show you first how to work a cable stitch, just in case you haven't done that before. And you will need a cable needle, which looks like this. So it's a short little needle that you can access at both ends, because you slide your stitches onto one end and then you knit them off the other end. You can also get cable needles that have like a little dip in them, like this one, and that just helps to stop the needle falling out of your stitches. But at a push, if you don't have anything like that, you can just use a regular double pointed needle. Even though they're a little bit longer, it doesn't matter. You're still doing exactly the same thing. You slip the stitches on one side and then you knit them off the other. And at a push, if you don't have any double pointed needles, you could actually use a crochet hook, because you could slide the stitches on at the hook end and then knit them off the other end. So just anything really that's slightly smaller or the same size as your knitting needles. You don't want to use anything that's thicker, because it'll stretch your stitches and then your tension might look a bit odd. So that's what you need before we begin. And then I will show you how to read the chart as well and what that all means. Now, if we look at the abbreviations, go to the special abbreviations, you'll see that the cables are made up of 3 and 3 stitches. We can see that it says 3/3 LC. So the LC refers to whether the cable is going to lean to the left or to the right. So this particular one at the top is you slip 3 stitches onto your cable needle. You hold the cable needle at the front of your work and then you knit the next 3 stitches, and then that gives you a left leaning cable, which is a cable that leans towards the left, and you can see that here. And then the other type of cable is a right leaning cable, where the stitches lean towards the right. So you can see that on this side, on the opposite side. So usually the cables will mirror themselves. So this one is leaning towards the left and this one is leaning towards the right. And so if we look back to the abbreviations, we've got a 3/3 RC. So that's slip 3 stitches onto your cable needle. You hold the cable needle at the back of your work and then you knit the next 3 stitches off your needles, and that gives you a right leaning cable, which is the RC. So that's all that means. And if you were working a 2x2 cable, so that would say 2/2 RC. But on this one, we're just leaning towards the right and we're using 6 stitches in total, 3 on the cable needle and 3 that you knit from your work. So hopefully when I show you that in practice, it'll make a bit of sense. And then if you look at the chart, and if you haven't read charts, we did cover this last week in the week 3, sorry. So if you want to refresh yourself on reading charts, just go back and have a look at that. But if we look at the symbols, we've got 2 different symbols, and again, because one cable leads to the right and one cable leans to the left, we've got 2 different symbols for those. So the right leaning cable leans to the right, so visually it looks the same as your knitting, and that's here and here. So you can see that the big slant is going towards the right, and the 3x3 left leaning cable is there and there. Can you see those? So it does help that the abbreviation and the symbol mirror what you're actually knitting. And so now I'm going to show you how to actually do the cable and how you hold your stitches at the front or at the back of your work. So now I'm at the part of the pattern where I'm going to show you how to do a right leaning cable followed by a left leaning cable, which is the centre bit of the square. So you take your cable needle, and first of all we're going to slip the next 3 stitches onto the cable needle. Slip them purlwise one by one, and then it says hold the cable needle at the back of your work. And now you're going to knit the next 3 stitches from the left needle, and then we're going to drop the left needle, pick up the cable needle and just push the stitches so that they're near to the top, so that you can knit those stitches from the cable needle. I've done that let's do that one again, sorry, got a bit stuck there. Quite tight when you're working cables, depending on how many stitches you're using. They can feel quite tight when you're knitting, but that's fine, don't worry. So that's the right leaning cable finished, and then we're going to do the same again, but for the left leaning cable we hold the stitches at the front of our work. So we slip the next 3 stitches onto the cable needle, leave it at the front, and then pretend it isn't there as you knit the next 3 stitches. When you knit that first stitch, just give the wool quite a tug so that you don't get holes between the stitches and then you're knitting. Knit 3 stitches from your left needle, then pick up the cable needle and bring your stitches to the top so that you can knit off those stitches from the cable needle. Just make sure, like I've done there, that you don't let the stitches on your left hand needle fall off. You can just let go of your left needle if you prefer to do it that way. So then that is my left leaning cable complete. I'll just finish those 2 stitches off so that I can hold it properly for you. And so now you can see on this little sample that we've got a right leaning cable and a left leaning cable, which is this part of the pattern here. Now the only thing left to show you now is how to pick up the stitches along the sides of your little square, your central square. And so sometimes you'll be picking up stitches along the cast on and cast off edges, and other times you'll be picking stitches up along the row ends, which is what I'm going to show you here. So the pattern tells us to knit 27 stitches, to pick up and knit 27 stitches along one edge of block. So what I tend to do is, so that I can pick my stitches up evenly, is that I'll pop myself a stitch marker at the halfway point, so that I know if I pick a stitch up where the stitch marker is, then I'll need to pick up 13 stitches on one side of the stitch marker and 13 stitches on the other side, and that'll give me 27 stitches. And remember also, when you're working along the row ends, we've knitted 32 rows, but we only need 27 stitches, so you're not picking a stitch up on every single row. You will just have to miss a few out. So if there's 15 or 16 rows in this first half, you only need to pick up 13 stitches. So we're going to have to miss a couple of stitches out, so just make sure you spread those out evenly. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our knitting needle, we're going to pick up our knitting, and we're going to go underneath 2 loops of that row end stitch. Don't just go under 1 loop, because that'll make it all big and sort of stretched and holy. So try and go under 2 loops, take the yarn and wrap it over the needle like so. Just hold on to it. You do need to hold on to the yarn as you pull that needle and that loop of yarn through to the front of your work. So if you don't hold on to this yarn, you won't be able to pull it through to the front. into the next row end. Now we're just going to use the working yarn to wrap it round the needle. Hold on to it as you pull it through the stitch to the front into the next row end. Yarn around needle, pull it through to the front. I'm going to miss a stitch now and go into the next one along, because I have got to miss a few out, haven't I? And don't worry, these, if your first stitch seems a bit loopy, you'll be able to pull that when you weave in the ends. So I'm going to go into the next stitch, yarn round needle and pull it through to the front. Don't make them too tight, because remember you've got to knit them up along the next row. Yarn round needle and pull it through to the front. Yarn round needle, pull it through to the front. So we've got 2, 4, 6, 7 stitches. I'm going to miss one now and then go into the next one along. That's 8, 9, 10, 11, I'm going to miss one, 12, 13. So I've got my 13 stitches, which takes me to that halfway point where my stitch marker is, so I can make a stitch there. I can take that stitch marker out because I don't need it anymore. And now I know that I've got to pick up another 13 stitches along that second half. So we start again. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to miss a stitch. 4, 5, 6, 7, miss a stitch. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I mean, you can miss your stitches wherever you want to do it, but once you've picked up all of the stitches, you won't notice, especially because it's garter stitch, you won't notice that you've missed a few stitches here and there, to make sure that you've got that right number of stitches. And that's how you pick your stitches up. And make sure you just keep your line and always go under those 2 loops at the end, so that you get a really nice neat edge where you've picked your stitches up. And then you can just carry on and work the pattern as it tells you to.